What's up, everybody? OG here, and at this time of the year especially, but all throughout the year, you always hear the same thing. FC's the best, eFootball's the best, UFL's the best. All these different players from each of the games always claiming one game is the best over the others. The funny thing is, though, most all of these players that say this have no idea about the other games, right? It used to just be FC's the best or eFootball's the best. Now, UFL is the new kid on the block, and they're added into the mix. And you see it all the time in comment sections, whether I see it on my channel, in any of the social media under each of the games. You just constantly hear that same debate over which game's the best, and you never really hear detail. You'll hear, well, why is FC the best? Because FC has this, 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 and this. Why is eFootball the best? Because it has this, 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 and this. Well, you have to know what the other games have too. How can you know that the game you're playing is the best when you have no idea about the other games? Well, I spent this entire year playing all three football games, and we're going to go over exactly how each game plays out on the pitch, right? And we're going to break it down into defending and attacking. On the defensive side, you have tackles, putting yourself in the right area to intercept. And then on the attacking side, you have the build-up, right, the passing. Then you have the run-making. Then the shooting. And, of course, shooting isn't the way you get points on the board. You have to score goals. So finishing is the last part. All these aspects create a skill gap. And that's what football gaming is all about. Because that's what football is about, too. You take two teams. They use their skill on the pitch. And they try to beat each other, right? Your job is to break your opponent down. Your opponent's job is to break you down. Your job is to score goals and to prevent your opponent from scoring. Their job is the opposite of that. It's quite simple. So we are going to break down how each of these games do on the pitch, emulating what we call the beautiful game. And we will see which game truly is the best. Now, when it comes to defending, the goal is simple. Keep your opponent from scoring goals. And to do this, you have to follow principles. The first principle is you keep your opponent from getting a shot. Because how do you score goals? You take shots. Now, how do you prevent your opponent from taking shots? You keep them away from the goal. And the way you keep them away from the goal is through your defensive positioning. Now, you can only control one player at a time. However, you have the ability in each of these games, some better than others, to use your AI in a way to help you, right? In FC, the keyword is help you. They don't do the work for you, but you can press a button and have two of the nearest defenders come mark two other opposition attackers, right? It's called second man press. So while you're controlling a defender, you would press that second man press, and the two nearest defenders would be marked like you see on the screen. Now, outside of that, you have to switch all of your defenders manually and put them into the position you want. And most importantly, you have to control the defender that either wins the ball or gets beat. The AI will not do it for you. Now, to win the ball, you have to put yourself in position and then choose the right option as far as a standing tackle, a sliding tackle. You can even do a hard tackle. You can do a professional foul, or you can do a shoulder charge. If you choose the wrong option, you're going to get beat, or you're going to give your opponent a foul in an area where maybe it's a penalty kick, maybe it's a free kick, but they're just going to retain possession. So you have to time and choose the right tackle, or put yourself in the right position to intercept whatever pass. Not only that, but you're keeping your opponent where you want them. They're trying to get to goal, you're trying to keep them away from goal. So your positioning with all these players matters. All of these things come down to your choices. And so when it comes to the defensive systems in both eFootball and UFL, it's very easy to see why EAFC has the best defense. And it's not even close. In eFootball, you have two buttons that make their defensive system a joke. An AI pressure button and a controlled player pressure button. Both of these buttons cause you to beeline with a sprint boost towards the attacker with the ball, and once they get to the attacker, they will win the ball. When I say they, it's because you aren't pressing a tackle button, you aren't timing a tackle, choosing a shoulder charge or a tackle. You are just holding down that pressure button, and that's it. So, there is a jockey button. There's no sprint jockey. There is the ability to press the tackle button, and sometimes you'll do it. But many times, the most powerful way, without a doubt, to defend is utilizing both R1 or X or whatever it is on the controller setup you use to pressure the opponent with the ball, because it creates that unrealistic speed boost, since players in real life don't just, defenders in particular in real life, don't just sprint as fast as they can towards an attacker to win the ball. Now, you can manipulate their broken system and try to make it more realistic. For instance, you hold down the X button, which is the player you control being taken over by AI and just sprinting with no angles in mind, which isn't how defense works. You always take that best angle to keep yourself between the attacker and the goal. But in eFootball, that's not the case. You beeline when you hold down the pressure button for the player you control, beeline towards the attacker, and then what you can do to make it more realistic is then stop. Take your finger off X when you close down the attacker, and then try to manually choose a tackle. However, the fact that the AI can and will, and many times does, sprint straight at the attacker and then win the ball for you, it makes it a non-skill-based setup, especially when you consider all the ways that Smart Assist helps, both offense and defense, on offense and defense. But we're going to act like Smart Assist doesn't exist, because if Smart Assist is turned on, eFootball has an asterisk next to it. And it's not even a skill-based game, because AI is making a majority of your decisions for you, right? You're pressing buttons, you're doing some things, but you're getting so much AI help, it's not even worth discussing eFootball in that sense as a skill-based game. And guess what? You can use it in all areas of the game, including competitive. And so when you see a lot of top-ranked, quote-unquote top-ranked players using Smart Assist, it's a big reason why eFootball is a joke. But just to keep it in the conversation, we'll act like Smart Assist doesn't exist and just look at this defensive system in itself, and we'll do the same for attacking. And the bottom line is, those two AI pressure buttons, right, and the way that defending ends up working out makes eFootball a joke. What ends up happening a vast majority of the time is you press these pressure buttons and try to essentially get to the ball before the attacking player can power up a pass or shot. Well, in real life, there is no power up, which is where, again, just the facts, EAFC is the leader in creating real life release times for passes and shots. Especially for FC 26, they made it even better. They already had the best when it comes to the realistic time it takes to receive a ball, pass, receive a ball, shoot, right? And now they're even more realistic with it. In eFootball, they are the most unrealistic, because you have that power bar, you power up your pass or shot. It takes so long that the overpowered defense, which is super unrealistic as well, ends up causing the opponent to win the ball when they didn't have any defensive intelligence. They didn't close down the angle, time a tackle well after they closed you down, push you where they wanted you, and intercept the ball. No, they just pressed R1 or X and sprinted around the pitch after you with different players until you rushed the pass and they intercepted it, or they tackled you before you could pass or shoot the ball. Totally bullcrap. Now, UFL, a little backstory. They started with a more manual defense, and they're headed in a great direction, and they just went away from it. Most likely because the lower skilled players couldn't do it, and working hard, just like in real football, apparently didn't register for Strikers, the development company. And so they went to a more AI-based defense. But the biggest problem with UFL is the defensive movement is broken, right? It doesn't work for keeping up with the attackers how you would need. Meaning, when the attackers have the ball, they have such an advantage that all you really have to do, as you can see here, is cut left and right. And because the defensive movement is broken, you won't be able to win the ball, especially when you have a more agile player cutting left and right. It doesn't matter how agile the defender is, though, because their movement is broken. In UFL, you can jockey and sprint jockey, but it is not good enough to keep up with the attacker. The same with eFootball. The attacker can sprint and do what they need to do with skill moves and whatever, but defensively, you can't stay in the position you need to be in while sprinting. Therefore, you'll just get blown by if you try to jockey. Then, when you go to win the ball, the proper animations don't exist to make it a realistic tackle. Therefore, you have to wait until the attacker pushes the ball out ahead and then essentially just run through the ball, when realistically you would have a bit of a tussle with the attacker, and then you would typically come out with the ball if you time the tackle right, and if not, there would be a foul. These things don't exist. These realistic skill-based elements of defense, they just don't exist in eFootball and UFL. Yes, there is a skill to defending in these two games, but it does not translate to actual football defensive skills. Now, on the attacking side, you can break it down into 4 parts. First, the build-up, right? Your passing. Then you have your run making. And from there, you get your shot off, right? But goals aren't scored by just shooting. You have to put it in the back of the net. Therefore, finishing is the last part of attacking. Each of these has a skill set that you will use to break down the opponent's defense, right? Then it becomes their skill defensively versus your skill in each of these attacking areas. Now, starting with passing. In each game, the passing from one player to the next is all pretty similar, right? The best weight of passing would go to eFootball because they just have that most realistic feel. Now, clearly, EA Sports recognized this because in FC 26, if you look at all the leaked footage from the beta, you can see that they made the weight of the players and the way passing looks on screen, they made it more realistic, because that was the main area that always had criticism that, people would say EAFC, formerly FIFA, looked like an arcade game, right? The movement, the way the passing looked, the weight of the players. So they're leaning in the right direction, but as far as the skill in passing itself, EAFC always did a great job, but eFootball also did a great job. UFL, this is the area where they totally bomb. Just like eFootball totally bombs in indescribable ways defensively, UFL does so with passing because they have almost this player lock system, right? Now, as you can see on screen, you can just spam the pass button and the ball will go directly to the player's feet, to the point where even when you play through balls and you're trying to lead players, it will lock onto a defender and you can't play in tight angles. Even if the pass could be made with a great passing, like a player with great passing attributes, it doesn't matter. If there is a defender in the way, something in their passing system will make your through ball lock to that defender. And so it makes it unrealistic. You'll be in a defensive scramble and you'll just literally spam X to get the ball out and it will go straight to one of your attacker's feet. It doesn't matter how far away the pass is, how heavy or light you powered it. And that's what makes their passing so unrealistic, right? There's absolutely skill in UFL, and this is kind of the same across the board, whether it's passing, shooting. There's skill in it, but it's not like a football skill. That's the whole thing. So, passing side, you would have to go between eFootball and EAFC, and I would say both of them are essentially tied. Let's even give the tiebreaker to eFootball because naturally, way before EAFC had it, going in the right direction, the weight of their passes, the weight of the players, the way it felt, always was more realistic in eFootball. But moving to run making, that's where EAFC takes the cake by a long shot. Once again, they are hands down the best because in eFootball, you can't even manually manipulate runs. Not using L1 or R1 to call players to or send them away, right? You definitely can't player lock like you can in EAFC where you choose one of the runners or you can choose multiple. You flick the right stick and you can make each attacker run in a different way, whatever you want. Then you would press whatever type of pass you want and the passer will play that ball. Or you can call players to and from, like I said, but also make them move in diagonal directions. Any direction you want, you can manipulate that run in EAFC, giving you full control of the run making. Therefore, it adds an extra element to the passing that you're in control of. In eFootball, the best you can do is after you play a pass, you can use the cancel button to then move the run maker, the player the pass is intended for, in whatever direction you want them to. So for instance, you can play a pass, press the cancel button, then move your attacker to the ball. But you can't literally make the run maker go in the direction that you want. So you're out of control. The runs are controlled by AI. It takes it out of your hands. In UFL, at least you can use L1 and R1 to make front runs to and from the ball, but you can't move in any direction that you want. You can't go diagonal in any way, to or from. It's just away from the ball or straight towards the ball. That's it. And once you add in that passing lock part, UFL is just way, way back when it comes to the race for the best passing and build-up, right? Now, moving to shooting, another area where EAFC takes a cake by a long shot, because both UFL and eFootball, it's just power up, aim, shoot, as opposed to having any type of precision to your shooting. Whereas EAFC literally has precision shooting. That's what it's called. You can aim all the way up until your foot is about to strike the ball in any direction that you want. Now they've added the ability to go low, which is important because, as you know, in real football, when you're on a breakaway, let's say, and the keeper's coming out, you can go high and over the keeper's shoulder far post, high and over the keeper's shoulder near post, or you can go low near post, low far post, or even low and trying to go through the keeper's legs is an option, right? The difference is the higher you aim, the less room for error you have because it can quickly go over the bar. When you go low, but you power it high, maybe the shot raises off the ground just a bit, but you still have from the ground all the way up to the crossbar, everywhere in between there. If you get it on goal, well, guess what? It's going to hit the back of the net if you can beat the goalie. All of these manual additions to shooting in EAFC with their precision shooting, and then now the ability in FC26 to go low with your any shot, finesse shot, power shot, regular shot, anything but chip shot, obviously, makes EAFC the undisputed king of shooting, because in eFootball and UFL, quite frankly, they're just not dynamic shooting mechanics. You power up your shot and you point in the direction, and then the AI takes over. There's no placing the ball just inside the post. There's no aiming for between the keeper's legs. There's no just going to the left of the keeper's leg and trying to curl it with a low finesse shot, right? You just power up and you point left or right, or you don't point at all. Then the AI takes over, right? Sometimes it might hit the post and go in. Sometimes it might hit the post and go out. Sometimes it might go just to the left of the goalie where it's almost down the middle. The AI chooses. It's out of your control. There is no precision shooting. Everybody in eFootball has experienced this. You take a shot, you aim to the corner like you've done a million times, but instead the goalie parries it and it almost like looks like it goes down the middle, or it goes 2 feet wide, and you're going, what the heck? How is that possible? Right? Because every time you shoot the ball, you power it up and then you don't know exactly what's going to happen. That's not skill based. And guess what? That's the same issue in UFL, only the difference is there's certain angles where you know the goalkeeper is going to save it no matter what, so you don't even shoot those angles. There's certain angles where you can almost guarantee a goal, and that's one of the many ways that UFL is a non-skill based game, because it's almost about glitches, right? There's these automatic goals, these automatic passes that will connect, right? There's certain passes that will lock the defense up, almost like there's a coding error. So that's where UFL, it's hard to put it in the equation with a lot of this stuff and be serious, because the game is so broken in different areas. But either way, even if you take that away, the lack of dynamic shooting in both eFootball and UFL renders them way out of competition with EAFC for the best attacking, the best shooting, the best finishing, right? That goes to EAFC, and it's not even a debate. And so this is the point that I try to make to everybody. If you are being honest, you're not being biased about the game you play, and you're just looking objectively at each of these football games, EAFC is the best. It doesn't mean that eFootball doesn't have areas such as the weight of the passing, the feel of those passing sequences. That's amazing. Doesn't mean they don't have areas like that where they're better, right? UFL with the customization of all of their made-up kits, their made-up badges and stuff, their team up with Adidas and the customization they did there, they did a great job with that, right? I know we're not talking about on-the-pitch stuff with UFL, but the bottom line is, if you're speaking objectively, specifically in the gameplay aspect, but also let's look at the content, all the game modes that you have in each of the games, or the lack thereof, EAFC is just checkmark after checkmark, the best football game. But again, just gameplay in particular, it's the same thing. And many people want to debate how eFootball is the best or UFL is the best. And when you really break down the game of football and then how each of these games emulate that onto the virtual pitch, it's not even a real discussion. But people just hone in on the game they're playing and just, yep, eFootball's the best. Yep, UFL's the best. It's just not the case. EAFC is the undisputed king of football gaming, off the pitch and on the pitch, and that's just the truth. Let me know what you think in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and check out our memberships, both on YouTube and our Discord, which you can find the link in the YouTube bio, or search Gamester FC in Discord itself. I'll see you on the next one. Peace!